So here I am. I guess it's actually, it's gotta be Thursday. And the reason I'm making this video is I'm realizing how much anything I do just takes so much out of me. Certainly, going dancing on Fridays, oh, as long as no blood is lost, I end up, not being able to do much on Friday. Sometimes I can come up and play a little bit, but usually I'm getting up late enough that I do my video games or whatever, and that eats up, and then I leave the house at like 6:30 for 6:30 is it? Yeah, for what's going to be like a show that starts at 9:30, right? Not because it takes me 3 hours to get there. It takes more than an hour though, about an hour and 15 minutes. And then by getting there a little early, I don't have to pay an entrance fee, and I can enjoy drinking a beer beforehand and reading my newspaper and whatnot. And then I dance, and if I have to walk home, which was the case this week, I get home, at like 4:30 or something. If I get a ride home, I get home before 3 usually. More likely to spend time hanging out and whatnot afterwards in those cases. Just because I'm not sociable, but my ride is likely. But, then I get back, I get home, and I'm not really able to do anything all day Saturday. And Sunday, I can usually get some gaming in or something, but I'm really not in the shape to go shopping or anything like that. Well, this last week, I had to walk home, and I was pretty much wiped out until late Saturday or late Sunday, I think. Some of it is that I get myself hooked into a video game or whatever, and I don't, these are things that I do because I don't like to be, I like to have something to do to engage my mind or whatever while I'm recuperating. But if I go shopping, that pretty much eats up a day. A lot of this is maybe because I don't have a car or whatever, but a lot of it is just my mental standing for things. I was thinking, I had gaming this week on Tuesday. I prepped the game on Monday. Once I figured out what we were going to play, which we didn't play, we had a cancellation. It was no longer 5 people, and honestly, Tresham's Revolution is probably not. I'm growing discouraged with my gaming group because, like I said, they're non-gamers, but we played Rocky Mountain High, which I was like, all right, look, I looked over the group. Nobody was really a heavy gamer. It's a guy who, does some role playing and whatnot. I really don't, playing Revolution again, I've played it 3 or 4 times now, and I still don't get it. And that was kind of what I was going to tell them is, look, don't expect to figure this game out. I will be impressed if anybody kind of comes up with something I haven't thought of, but it's really it's not a game that you can really get a good grasp on. in a first playing, or in my case after several, the rules are very procedural, and you just kind of feel like you're being buffeted around, and then at the end you kind of look and you say, I don't know why that happened that way. At least that's me. um, it's not something where I can have a really clear, okay, this is what I want to do. There are certain things I know that I want to do. Like I want to get a hold of cities, even if cities aren't necessarily important to me for victory conditions. They're very powerful. Stuff like that. But each faction has its own little special abilities and everything. Anyway, I just looked at the group that I had there. There were only going to be 4 of us, so I was like, yeah, I've got it all set up for 5, but I really don't think these guys are going to appreciate it that much. But we play Rocky Mountain High, and we were supposed to start at 4:30. There's no way we started at 4:30. I don't think they got here till 5. Probably started the game actually by 6. But even so, it's like a game that should take a couple hours, and it was like close to 2 in the morning before we were done with it. Yeah, there was food break and all this. But it's like, I put something up that was light fluff. Always kind of with the hope that when I do something kind of lighter, that we're going to have time to play cards or something afterwards. But it's like, I don't know, some serious analysis paralysis going on there. And I don't know. Also, I wasn't prepared, so the rules were not as clear to me, and I basically had to read through them as opposed to presenting them like I would have been able to do with Revolution, but Revolution would have taken longer with the rules. But that means today, yesterday, whatever, the time that I've been awake, and it was the last non-rainy day, I get up late enough that there's no way I'm going to be able to go shopping. And I'm also wiped out, having, again, put in a day to prep and a day, a solid day's work worth of gaming in. I'm like exhausted. And although, worse than that, as soon as they were gone, I'm not ready to sleep or anything after gaming. After dancing, I can often go to sleep right away. But after gaming, it's not easy for me. I'm wired up and charged and everything. So I actually stayed up 3 or 4 hours later in order, to playing my computer game or whatever. I don't know if it was 4 hours, probably close to 3. So, whatever I do, it kind of wipes me out. Anything that I do. Even going for a walk with someone or something like that, it's like, it feels like such a big thing. And this is what I used to always wonder about, not understand when I wasn't working before, and now when I'm not working now, is how people kind of lead a life where they're doing things and working. To be fair, when I was working, I wasn't doing much other than working. I didn't feel like going out or anything like that, and much of it was while I was in Phoenix. I didn't really have an opportunity. I didn't have friends or anything to go hang out with. Here, it's a little different. When I know that I tended to, like, not often, but I would go down to the game store or something like that after work. I would go for a walk after work sometimes, or go to eat Chinese food, or something like that with my wife. So I was able to do more than normal, but largely my tendency is, I can do one thing on a day at best. And if that thing, is fairly hefty, like having a game group over or the dancing, work didn't really count. So work was kind of like sitting in front of the computer and playing my games. I mean, I always compare the two because that's what it kind of felt like. You know, I had to do certain tasks and they kept me busy and I was alone. Yes, there were meetings online, over the phone and whatnot, but most of the days, most of the time, felt very much like playing a computer game. So I was like, whatever, you know. So it wasn't like I was doing anything. It wasn't, you know, when I had to go in for work in an office in Phoenix, for example, or at other times in my life where I had to work, it was really, really hard to ever do anything other than work for that day. And I do remember I used to, when I worked in the parking garage, I used to run a role playing game on Tuesday nights, I think it was. And what I would do is I'd take off work like an hour early or something and get a little nap in. And that helped. You know, plus I didn't really have to be awake or anything. But when I worked in Phoenix, I mean, I just went in the office. I just made it home, and that was it. You know, I mean, it was really hard to get anything else done. Uh, it's just sort of this. I need so much downtime, sort of, to be able to deal with anything. And that's just where everything just gets eaten up. All my time disappears because I have so much of a need for downtime. And I'm talking about downtime that's not just like away from other people or something. You know, like today, I did not want to come up here and play balaclava. I didn't want to do, you know, to sit out on my porch and read, although it was already getting too late for that and it's chilly and everything like that. But I'm just like, I've always had this problem. I didn't get how people could like live a life of working and, you know, having a life that had anything else in it, sort of. And I still feel that same way, and I still feel like whenever I do something, it drains me of so much that, you know, doing something else kind of cuts into it. Now, again, working from home was not like work. It was kind of awesome. It was kind of like I was wasting time, you know, the way I waste time now, and it's why, you know, when I got laid off, I started up with Raid or whatever. It was so I had something like that I could just fill my life with. Anyway, it is now, like I said, it's got to be Thursday, and I'm just like, yeah, tomorrow I got to go dancing again. I don't know if that's even possible. You know, and I'm like, you know, the idea of it costs me 3 days to go dancing. It costs me 3 days essentially to do gaming. uh, it just, you know, I can't do them both in the same week easily or something. That's not like I can go for a walk or something and I'm stiff the next day or whatever, if it's a nice long walk or if it's a lot of steep hills and whatnot. And I'm not really that affected. Uh, but that's a situation where it's the activity that's eating up my time, and then a little bit of downtime afterwards to recover from being around if I went with people. Um, but if I go for a walk alone, then I don't even really need the downtime the same way. But it feels like I need to retreat from whatever, you know, I experienced so much. And again, the cool thing about the work I was doing at home was that like it was that retreat, even more so than like gaming or something would, like gaming solo would be or whatever. So it's just kind of weird. Anyway, I'm just kind of putting these thoughts to mind because I don't feel like actually starting the game right now. but I did want to. I wanted to hit this more, but I got my game set up at least more than I wanted to play the game. So